Hello there, I'm Scotty, you're not, and we're continuing on with Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and to quote the Amanda Show, this movie better, much better. This is now the third time in my life I've seen this movie. We watched it at school, when I was in high school. It was PG, you could watch it anyway. And then I've watched it when I bought that Ford movie set that I mentioned in the last one, and now watching it here. This is a good movie. I mean, this was a good movie. From the villain, Khan, played by Ricardo Montalban. I'll even say that even Shatner gives a good performance in this. And of course, Leonard Nimoy is great in this as well. Yeah. So the story is, Kong Noonan Singh, who was marooned by Kirk in the episode Space Seed, now 15 years later is back for revenge on Kirk because he left him on the planet and there was an incident in which something happened, became barren, and caused the death of his wife, which now he's out for revenge. So the director of this film, does it say on the back of it? I don't think so. The director of this film is not a Star Trek fan. He never saw any episodes of this series, and it's very obvious when the movie starts because there's a big continuity error right at the beginning of this movie when Khan shows up. So Chekhov and this other guy, they're on this planet. They're on another ship, actually. They land on this planet. And they come across Khan. Now, in this scene, both Khan and Chekhov recognize each other. The only problem is, in the only episode of the series in which Khan appears, Space Seed, as I mentioned, Chekhov hadn't joined the Enterprise yet. Wasn't a part of the show yet. So they shouldn't recognize each other. And they've even said, I looked it up, they even said that they've acknowledged the mistake. You know, it was like a writing error. They've acknowledged the mistake, but, you know, I don't know. It was a mistake. It's a continuity error. But, yeah. And, so yeah, they're after this thing called the Genesis program, which Dr. Carol Marcus, who would appear in the J.J. Abrams, played by Alice Eve, the J.J. Abrams movie. She's in this one, right? Or is it Into Darkness? Why is Chris Pine not the first? Okay. John Cho, they're in alphabetical order, are they? Yeah. Okay, she's in this one, Into Darkness, which, strangely enough, also featured Khan, so there was your hint. But anyway, Dr. Carol Marcus and her son, who, and this is my third time watching, it took 3 times before I realized that he's also Kirk's son. So they cast someone who had blonde hair with like Carol, but curly hair like Shatner, but this dude is taller than both of them. I guess if other family members are taller, you could get their genes because my son is going to be taller than me, and me and his mother are both short people. And I think she might be shorter than I am. But he's 10 and he's already up to here. Top of his head is right here. So he's gonna keep growing. He's gonna be bigger than me soon at some point. He's 10, he's already here. Just saying. And if my niece gets my brother's genes, forget it. She can be bigger than him. Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't realize that until this one. I'm like, wait a minute, is his son? I know that. Yeah. Khan wants the Genesis because you're thinking, because it's a thing that creates life. But if it's used on a planet that already has life, it'll destroy that to create new life. So obviously Khan's going to use it, I'm assuming, on Earth, to terraform it and create a new world for himself. That's what I'm assuming. I don't know if he ever specifically says that. The very interesting thing is that Khan and Kirk never share the same space. They speak through communication, but they're never in the same room together. They don't interact face to face in the same room. There's no hand-to-hand combat. They're not together in the same room once in this film at all. And sometimes you think, oh well, it's not going to work with it. Surprisingly, it does work, and that is due to the acting chops of both actors. Between Kirk, Shatner, and Montalban. Montalban, I will chase him around. Something of the end perdition's playing for, marooned on a black hole. Just how he delivers his lines. There she is. There she is. Just how he says those lines. It's just, I don't know some of the exact lines apparently, but when you started saying them, I would quote them because they're such iconic lines by him. And speaking of iconic lines, I have to say it. William Shatner, their iconic lines, Spock, you have been and shall always be my friend. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And of course, when you're talking about iconic lines, Captain Kirk, especially for Captain Kirk, you have to remember the line. Khan! Khan! I got it echoes about the planet or whatever. Now I need a drink. My throat hurts. But yeah, and so yeah, and you got these. One of the most disturbing scenes in this is the little slug thingies. You show that there's these creatures that are on this planet, and Khan takes this little thing from it, has a little slug, and he puts it in Chekhov's and the other guy's ears to control them. And even when they're found, they're still in control. And you could tell Walter Koenig, I think that's how you pronounce it, is fantastic because you could tell from his acting that he doesn't want to do this. Unlike the other guy who's in complete control, Chekhov doesn't want to do this. But eventually the other guy does take back control. He has a less showing that he's fighting. He turns the gun on himself, shoots himself, disintegrates himself, so he doesn't have to be under Khan's control anymore. And eventually, the slug does crawl out of Chekhov's ears because we're going to kill off one cast member in this movie. But yeah, it is kind of disturbing with the. And think of you're like a, I don't know, 16-year-old in high school, and they put that on, and I'm a horror guy. I like body horror, but back then, that's just weird. I don't really body horror, it's creature horror, but still, it's just disturbing. If I have a criticism, and it's just my thing, like, I don't think that Kirk and Carol Marcus, I don't know if there's, I don't think they have enough chemistry. Like, there's obviously something between them, and they have the conversation about, you left, and I stayed, and that. Kirk's a womanizer. So, there's always that. And I like how this kind of comes back to haunt him, because now he has a son who's like all grown up now. So how long would them been apart? But still, I don't know. I would like them to actually do that. You know, if they ever get around to making the fourth J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie, they need to play on that. Bring back Carol Marcus and say that she was pregnant the last time they met, and she's like a 15-year-old teenager or 14-year-old. You know, if it's the second one, which I'm mistaken, so it's 2013, so it'd be like a 10-year-old. Especially when it comes out next year, or in 2 years, 2024, it could be a 10-year-old. You know? I'm just saying. Kirk has a son. If they do that, though, I think they'd have to go the route that Kirk would actually sacrifice himself this time for good, which could end the trilogy. I don't know. Speaking of sacrifice, though, let's talk about the gigantic elephant in the room. No, it's not about Jonathan Brandis. Go away. Star Trek fans will understand that. But anyway, Anyway, so yes, Spock dies in this movie. He sacrifices himself to deactivate this thing, so that they can. He does it to fix the hyperdrive so they can get away from the explosion that Khan's ship is going to produce, I believe. But the radiation, they say no human will survive, and he's like, well, I'm not completely human, and he goes in there. And originally he was just going to die. They're going to kill him off. But fans got so pissed. Like, they went to the screenings and they got pissed when he got killed off. What is it about 80s movies? People get pissed about killing off characters. You have this, where they had to add on stuff to set up that he was going to come back. So this is the start of a trilogy of films. And a lot of people start with this movie and skip the first one, which if I wasn't doing a review series, I probably would have. They did this one, Star Trek 3, which is called The Search for Spock, and Star Trek 4, which is The Voyage Home, which has whales. And yeah, so they had to add that in, saying, oh, he'll be back. And the mind meld thing with Bones to give him his memories to set up the next one. Which I know some about, but I don't know. I haven't watched it. I haven't watched anything beyond this except for First Contact and part of Nemesis before the 80 stopped working. But, and then the 3 I mentioned before. But, yeah. So he sacrifices himself to save the rest of them so he can get out of there. And he dies. It's a powerful moment, and they have the funeral where they send him out to space, which we'll see at the end sets something else up. So, and but something I noticed, they play bagpipes at his funeral. He wasn't Scottish. I know Scotty is there, but why bagpipes? He was Vulcan. Did I know what to do? Kirstie Alley's character is there. She's a Vulcan. Then she could do custom. You know, I think that maybe they wanted to send him back to Vulcan. No, we have to set up the next film. So, yeah, and they're once again ready to set off. But we get a narration, you know, space, the final frontier thing, but it's Leonard Nimoy doing it. And then we cut to a planet that seems to have been terraformed by the Genesis, and you see the pod there. So I'm assuming that, I'm guessing that, maybe it'll say in the next one, that the Genesis thing, when the ship exploded, the Genesis stuff landed on the planet that they were at earlier, terraformed it, and that's where Spock's thing landed later. I'm guessing. I'll find out when I watch the next one. But this movie is really good. Really, really good. So I have to say, though, when it comes to Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, I would say it's pretty good. There are probably no perfect movies in this, because I think that this is the closest to perfection you get. Like, this is a very high, pretty good. Like, almost on the brink of perfect. I've never been the biggest fan of Star Trek as I have of Star Wars. So I don't know. It's still nothing. Like, if I'm going to go back, I'll watch this. Maybe First Contact, but Star Trek's not going to be the first thing I grab for. That's why I can't give it a perfect score, because to me it's Star Trek, not as good as Star Wars. Even though Star Wars is a movie, this was a TV series, these are movies now. And technically these had more movies before Star Wars had more movies, but still. It was around before Star Wars, you know. But, yeah. Not bad. So what are your thoughts on Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan? Wrath of Khan. When it comes to love, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.